Welcome back to Ladies of Another View, and I want to welcome back our guest, Rachel Barkley, who is the director of Able Americans. And during the break, we asked Rachel if she had gotten any of her movement back, and she can walk again, still going through physical therapy, but a lot of those nerve endings are coming back and growing. And between blood, sweat, and tears and the grace of God, she's doing very well. I'm assuming that we weren't the only ones that were curious about that. But I want to jump into the topic of assisted suicide because the right to die becomes the responsibility to die. And I think we're seeing that in Canada and other places where people who are disabled, their life gets put under a microscope to the point where maybe they're feeling pushed that their life isn't worth living. But can you talk about that?
Absolutely. There's so many levels where this is an affront to human dignity, these right to die laws. A terminal diagnosis. So these laws say that if you have a terminal diagnosis, then you can have a physician help you to take your life. And a terminal diagnosis is so subjective, and doctors often, I had a very bad diagnosis. The first doctor who came and said, you have the spinal cord tumor, told my 30-year-old self and my young husband, brand new baby, to get our affairs in order. That sounds like a terminal diagnosis to me. And so under that, definition, I could have taken my own life. And, it's very depressing getting a tough diagnosis. And so it's really not helping people with disabilities to see that they have just as much dignity, just as much right to a full life, even if it's a harder life. A harder life doesn't mean a worse life.
It's interesting to me. I feel like we're living in a culture of death where it's like people's mindset is set on death instead of set on life. And I just imagine for yourself and for, so many other individuals out there, if we just take on, what is the medical opinion, even though it may be right at the time, it doesn't mean that it's right forever. It doesn't mean that it should be able to strip away our hope and our faith for the future. So it's so important that we, like you, have something to look forward to and that it's a temporary season in many cases. I love to hear that you're, going after advocating for people's rights in situations like yours. Can you tell us? Go ahead.
No, I want you to ask your question, but let's look at the stats and then you ask your question because I want people to see. We threw it up on the screen just so you can focus on. Assisted suicide is legal in 10 states in the District of Columbia. 19 states have pending legislation this year. As of 2020, about 5,330 people in the U.S. have died with medical assistance. And then we have a map showing this is where it's legal. And the problem is people get used to the idea, and now there's more and more states. It happened slowly, started out in Oregon, but now it's slowly getting more accepted, and it's not okay. So I want you to go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, I just thanking you for helping to be a part of bringing this to the forefront for people. And can you tell us a little bit more about how you're doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, letting people know that this is a creeping problem. I think most people don't know that these laws are on the march in other states and in European countries and in Canada. The laws are far worse than here, right? And we see that creep happening into our medical system. And so I think just raising awareness, stopping these laws from continuing in other states, and putting the kind of burden back on our medical providers to help provide, medical care should help provide more dignity in life and better quality of life for individuals with disabilities and all people, who go through the medical system, and not giving this out that we can just help you end your life. Because I think it's really important that I'm just going to reemphasize that a harder life doesn't mean a bad life. And I think that is culturally a little countercultural today.
Why do you think it changed from with this assisted suicide? Why do you think it's coming so prevalent? Is it the laws that we have in place that aren't helping people with disabilities, that they just feel lost and they just want to end it because they can't go on because there's no help for them?
I think that it is this broader acceptance of kind of a culture of death. Like you said, these laws are not just for people with disabilities. It's for anyone with a terminal illness. And so this kind of cultural acceptance that we've got to, if it's hard, if it's painful, let's just put an end to life rather than fight for the dignity of life even through difficult circumstances. And that requires a lot of community, right? I had to have a big community of support around me in my hard times. And even government assistance when you don't have that social safety net of your own. And so I think, the medical community, our social safety net, our community of support around us really needs to step up for people who are hurting.
Well, we have this mindset in our culture, and it's allowed for the abortion industry. If there's something wrong, and I have interviewed many, many families, they were told their baby's going to be disabled and to abort them, and they were born healthy. So,
Wow.
I mean, there's a lot of healthy babies that were born, and those that were born with some kind of disability became a big blessing to their family. So, an easy life is not necessarily a better life.
Right.
Sometimes it's those struggles that actually give you many blessings and give you a better life, and you don't realize it. But our culture is all about the easy way. The bright and the beautiful, and if you're not in that crowd, then maybe your life isn't as valuable, which is crazy. But the media will be very sympathetic to somebody who wants to end their life, but you don't hear the other side. They don't report
Right.
on that. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And I think even, you don't see a lot of people in wheelchairs in the movies or in the media, right? And I think it's important that people with different kinds of disabilities are portrayed in culture. And, this is why a lot of the policy reforms that help people with disabilities to get back into the workforce, to be out in the community, to be parents, to be equal parts of society are so important, because if we see, people who might have different disabilities are equal in value out in the community, and we see that every day, I think we're more likely to advocate for that instead of just like saying, well, let's put them away in a nursing home, or let's even as extreme as ending your life because you can't envision what a good future is. In the op-ed I wrote about a woman in the UK who's about my age who decided to take this path when she became a quadriplegic, and she committed suicide this year. And I just was like, oh, I just can't imagine not getting the message that my life is worthy and valuable, even if I can't use my legs.
Well, can you speak a little bit to how you feel this process has affected you, your outcome, your view of life, and if you feel that it has been a positive thing for you, or how has this affected you and your outlook on life?
Yeah, Liz, I would have never have chosen this path, right? It's incredibly hard. It's the pain that I live with every day is so high, and it makes it hard to be, a mom to little kids and to work and all of these things for sure. But I say that it brings this richness of joy every day because I was this close to losing my life. And so I have this gratefulness, of the little moments with my 2-year-old, or of accomplishing something at work. So I have a lot more joy in every day and contentedness, and a lot more compassion for other people that I don't think I would have had. So I think my perspective kind of fast forwarded my maturity by a decade or two.
So in many ways, it enriched your life in a lot of very important ways. Did you feel when you were in a wheelchair, did the public treat you differently? And we have just 1 minute, but.
Yeah, so I still use a wheelchair about 80% of the time. Most of the time, people treat me as an equal, but there's still, sometimes I can't get access to a restaurant or a restroom or a shop because they still haven't made it accessible, and that's really frustrating. I would say mostly as a mother is where I get treated differently. I've had people on the street ask, is that your child? So I think there's more to be done to show that people with disabilities can be the same as everyone else.
And I hope this show went along those wet lines too, just to keep people in mind. And we can all become disabled at any moment, so it's not like them and us, it's all of us. So thank you, Rachel, for joining us. Thank you for the good work that you're doing. Really appreciated having you on.